Imagine a young Homelander. The future godlike tyrant is just a little boy sitting with a ward tutor, but something is deeply wrong. He's questioning absolutely everything around him. He looks at his handler and demands to know if scientist Jonah Vogelbaum is his father. When she confirms that his brilliant broken mind pushes even further, he asks if the tutor herself is his mother. What happens next shifts from a bizarre family dynamic to pure unadulterated horror. When she says yes, the scene exposes the terrifying truth of how completely unstable he already was as a child, and the length to which Watt went to hide these early incidents. It shows that Watt not only created him but also covered up his early actions, which removed consequences from his life. But the most jarring revelation is what was happening inside his mind. As a child, he actually still felt fear after what he did, but because Watt protected him from reality, that human fear slowly disappeared over time. Instead of receiving a normal childhood, he was systemically trained, monitored, and aggressively pushed into becoming a manufactured symbol of patriotism. It provides the final chilling context to exactly how a vulnerable boy was twisted into the terrifying adult version of Homelander we all have seen. I somehow dug up every single piece of deleted slop they cut from all the seasons of The Boys. I'm obviously not planning to sit around and waste your damn time, so the second you finally subscribe to my YouTube channel, we are marching straight ahead into this train wreck. What happens when Billy Butcher is left completely alone at Becca's grave? Our second deleted scene from Season 1 uncovers this exact moment, tracking him to a quiet, broken space where he speaks directly to her. The camera catches him as he whispers. This confession opens up a completely different layer to what lies ahead. From the very beginning, his mission against Homelander was not just anger or revenge, but more of a grief, guilt and love mixed together in a very unstable way. Butcher knows he is crossing a moral line. He understands that Becca would not improve of the path he is taking, yet he continues anyway. Which brings us to how this deleted Season 1 scene connects to the full story. The narrative circles right back to the grave, the exact place where the deleted scene began. What unfolds here reveals that Butcher's violence was never just about killing Homelander. It was about love, loss, and a promise he could never truly keep. There is a reason to be glad they cut this exact moment, even though visually it's incredible. Watch what happens when Homelander flies directly over Butcher. The framing immediately abandons the standard look of superhero TV, slipping instead into something closer to Batman noir. The paranoia vibe here is insane, and as he passes overhead, the sequence shifts the tone entirely, capturing a specific atmosphere that makes Homelander feel like a horror monster. Picture this huge deleted block. Out on the street, aggressive protests are breaking out. You got religious activists out there shouting that Starlight hates the Bible. The camera cuts backstage, a harsh conversation with Ashley Barrett. She is frantically checking popularity ratings, demanding that Annie strictly follow the Watt contract. The footage exposes Watt perfectly. The religious satire was way harsher originally. I understand why they cut it, and probably you do as well. But it adds depth. Starlight's identity crisis hits harder here. Scene with Homelander on the roof of the Chrysler Building skyscraper. Right after Homelander is dressed down by Stillwell, the top secret footage takes us to the top of the Chrysler Building skyscraper, where he is found standing on one of the Chrysler Building eagles. From there, the situation escalates as he pulls his pants down and starts gooning, mumbling "I can do whatever I want" over and over again until he climaxes all over New York City. This sequence details the actual reality of the production. For lack of a better phrase, they even shot it. Rumor says Anthony was the best in that scene, though Amazon seemed to think it wasn't necessary. Ultimately, the segment shows what this unreleased moment tells us about his psyche. Well, yet again. The deleted scene that proves Homelander wasn't always a monster. The footage opens a window into Homelander's superhero career before the events of The Boys. He corners Queen Maeve in a washroom to confront her about their breakup. At first he reminisces about old times. Then the accusation drops. He claims she began pulling away from him approximately 2 years ago. Maeve denies the allegation, appearing completely cool and collected. But Homelander notes a single physical detail. Her heart rate is up. She's lying. The subtext of the interaction turns entirely on this psychological reaction. Maeve insists they broke up because he was unfaithful, but her behavior suggests she left him because of fear. Because of that exact 2-year time frame and his assertion that she hadn't behaved like that before, a specific event likely triggered the change. Queen Maeve dated Homelander for a reason. While it's possible he hid his true nature from her for the majority of their relationship, it's equally as likely that Homelander changed over time. His transformation into the sociopath he is in The Boys was gradual, and it was no doubt exacerbated by his fame. But if you think that stands, wait till you see what they ever discussed and Deep is up to in this next unearthed clip. He's teaching a CPR class to a group of lifeguards, and even though there isn't any blood dripping from the walls this time, it's honestly no less disturbing. He just can't stop being completely inappropriate, filling the room with a non-stop running commentary of gross jokes and ridiculous asides. Then he takes it further, saying use your quads with a touch of groin. And right before the scene cuts, he singles out a female student for some extra training, leaving a pretty uncomfortable question mark hanging in the air. Then the spotlight shifts to Billy Butcher, opening a loop that completely reframes how far he was willing to go from the very start. He's just sitting there in his car, opening this vintage Hartswick cigar box. Except it's not filled with cigars, it's packed with fake IDs. He pulls out a counterfeit ATF badge with his own photo on it, proving a massive point. From the absolute beginning of the first season, Butcher was already fully prepared to break the law and masquerade as a federal agent to get exactly what he wanted. He corporate pressure.
I can't stop.
There's this deleted scene inside Madeline Stillwell's office at Watt International that completely shows who really holds the leash. She confronts A-Train about a mandatory publicity meeting, and he's just whining about not wanting some random guy to blubber all over him. But Stillwell immediately snaps him back to reality, dropping two massive problems. He has a huge Nike campaign coming up, and Shockwave just shaved another points off his mileage. Then she delivers this chilling warning that leaves a massive question mark hanging over his entire future, telling him he doesn't want those guys on 82 bitching that he's difficult, or he's gonna end up just like Lamplighter. While A-Train is left spit in his position, this next deleted scene opens up a completely different loop with Huey, who is riding an absolute high. He's completely hyped after successfully planting the bug inside WoW Tower, and he's so ecstatic that he literally runs back to the car and leaps right over the hood. He hops into the passenger seat, proud as hell, and hands the device over to Butcher. The two of them just burst into this celebratory laughter, with Huey shouting in pure unadulterated triumph. But that high completely crashes in a dark deleted scene inside a Watt medical lab. Homelander and Queen Maeve are standing directly over the bloody exploded remains of Translucent laid out on autopsy table. Staring at the pieces, Maeve admits she's got a strange feeling. Suddenly realizing their own mortality, she notes how they charge into gunfire thinking they're invincible, only for this to happen. Homelander just hits her with his cold, sociopathic humor saying, Actually, I think I prefer him like this. Right before WoW went to hunt down the killers. But the tension spikes even higher when Madeline Stillwell walks in to report a critical situation. Homelander sarcastically snaps back, yeah, no shit. But then Stillwell drops an absolute bomb, revealing that the crisis is much bigger than him. That terrifying revelation leads right into a completely silent, high-tension deleted scene that serves as an extended build-up to one of the biggest confrontations in Season 1. Homelander drops straight from the sky, landing right on the front lawn of Dr. Jonah Wogglebaum's secluded mansion. Walking past the massive white columns with this terrifying perfect posture, he steps up to the dark wooden entrance and knocks. This wordless sequence perfectly underscores Homelander's God complex, showing him arriving completely unannounced to extract the darkest secrets about his past and back up Butcher from his own creator. An even darker loop is playing out behind iron bars, where the very survival of the team hangs by a thread. Trapped inside a high-security CIA black site holding cell, MM and Frenchie are staring down a complete dead end, desperately trying to figure out their next move. Frenchie is visibly unraveling, pacing the cage and frantically hunting for an impossible exit. Then comes a sharp, volatile shift in tone. MM tries to anchor the panic with pitch-black, sarcastic humor, dryly asking Frenchie if he thinks they're staring in the movie Shawshank Redemption, before reminding him that escaping a black site doesn't work that way. Frenchie is entirely convinced their fate is sealed and they're completely screwed. MM drops one final calm lifeline, insisting that Butcher will come for them, but as the scene cuts, the loop stays wide open, leaving their grim fate entirely up in the air. But the biggest secrets aren't just kept by the guys on the run. There was a massive emotional revelation buried deep in Season 1 that completely rewrites how we view Queen Maeve. It starts quietly, with her girlfriend, Elena, simply moving furniture around her apartment. Then a sudden shift. Maeve appears at the door, completely stripped of her superhero costume, looking entirely hollowed out and exhausted. What follows is a tense, deeply painful conversation about just how fake and fabricated her entire life has become under Watt's total control. Piece by piece, she reveals her rawest truth, confessing that Elena is the absolute only real thing left in her world. The emotional volatility peaks with a passionate, desperate kiss, locking away Maeve's absolute biggest hidden vulnerability long before the rest of the world would ever find out in Season 2. That crushing Watt pressure takes an even more disturbing physical toll in a deleted sequence that tracks the total breakdown of another soup. We find A-Train completely isolated inside a Watt elevator, and the site is jarring. He is alone, visibly twitching and nervously moving his head, a raw, unedited look at the severe compound V addiction and the absolute paranoia eating him alive. The tension builds in that enclosed box until the doors slide open, and the outside world violently crashes in. A panicked Watt employee named Trevor sprints up, desperately stating that they urgently need his help. The reason? A high-priority prisoner breakout just went down at a CIA black site. With that single sentence, the puzzle pieces slam together, instantly triggering Watt's relentless, catastrophic hunt for the boys. And that relentless hunt brings us straight into the opening of Butcher's short film, dropping us right into a massive unfolding mystery. We open inside this pitchy black sketch room on Clarkson Avenue, right in the dead center of Haitian Kings to gain territory, with intense heavy music instantly cranking the tension through the roof and setting a brutal mood. Billy Butcher is just sitting there completely alone under a single spotlight, and the second the camera cuts to a tight close-up, you can see the guy has been pushed straight to the absolute edge. He's sweating, breathing heavy, and staring into nothingness like a hunted animal, which instantly hooks you and locks you into a massive open loop. Cause while it's glaringly obvious he's running for his life and totally trapped in a corner, you're left desperately trying to figure out exactly what kind of menace went down to put him in this crosshair. Before we can even piece together how he ended up in that dark room, the timeline violently shifts and slams us right onto the hard asphalt of a random parking lot where Butcher snaps awake face down, just as a massive jet screams directly over his head. The deafening roar jolts him straight up, instantly throwing him into pure raw survival mode as he books it inside a local diner, grabbing a pen to frantically scribble down some kind of desperate exit plan. But right in the middle of figuring out his next move, the frame completely locks up as the TV on the wall suddenly cuts to a breaking news alert, blasting his face across the screen as a wanted fugitive for a high-profile murder. The room goes dead quiet when the cashier slowly looks up from the broadcast, staring dead at him, and for a split second their eyes totally lock. Butcher realizes his cover is completely blown, drops everything on the spot, and instantly bolts for the door. Butcher doesn't waste a single second. Using the cover of night to immediately track down a parked car for a quick getaway, he completely smashes the driver's side window, jumps straight into the seat, and instantly starts staring into the steering column to hotwire the vehicle. Every movement becomes a calculated race against the clock as he rapidly strips and twists the ignition wires together, finally forcing the engine to spark to life as the loud wail of police sirens starts closing in fast from the background. He slams on the gas and peels out of the dark, empty lot, making a blind, high-stakes run for it into the streets, just before the authorities can close the net. Escaping that police net buys him just enough time to vanish into what should have been a safe haven, the apartment of an old military buddy. At first the pressure drops as they share old war stories, building up a deceptive vibe of mutual trust that actually convinces Butcher to do the unthinkable, drop his guard. He hands over a photo of his wife, asking the guy to tap into his old intel work to help him track her down. But the second Butcher hits the shower, that safety violently fractures. His friend has seen the breaking news, assumes Butcher is a crazed psycho who murdered Stillwell, and figures he's hunting his wife down to kill her too, so he completely sells him out to the cops. The trap springs the moment Butcher walks out dripping wet, staring directly into a gun pointed right into his face. In a flash, his survival switch flips, triggering a wave of brutal violence as he instantly overpowers the guy and chokes him to death right there on the floor. He then straight up torches the entire apartment to ash to completely erase his tracks, leaving us with a massive open loop as he slips back into the night with absolutely nowhere left to hide. Leaving those ashes in the rearview, we cut straight to Butcher blasting down the road in the car, totally laser focused on his next move. Right in the middle of the drive, his phone starts buzzing, and French's name lights up the screen. But Butcher is completely iced out right now. He doesn't even flinch. He just straight up ignores the call, letting it ring out while he keeps his eyes glued to the asphalt and keeps driving forward. A cold move that directly references a massive collision course waiting for him down the line and leaves a major open loop about how the team is even going to function as we head into what happens next. While Butcher is out there on the run keeping his own crew completely in the dark, the real chaos is boiling over Watt Tower. And the crazy thing is, the final breakdown we actually got almost didn't happen. The plan was way more chilling. Homelander was meant to hover high above the earth just like Superman, staring down at the entire planet with this terrifying sociopathic expression. The scene was fully filmed and ready to go, but Amazon completely panicked and pushed for an ending that felt way less ambiguous. So Kripke pulled off a wild pivot, reusing a deleted scene from season 1 on the Chrysler building. From there, the situation escalates as he pulls his pants down and starts mumbling, "I can do whatever I want," over and over again until he climaxes all over New York City. Ironically, one that Amazon had straight up rejected before. This revised finale amplified the psychological tension by emphasizing exactly how powerless and pathetic Homelander had become after losing total control of everything around him, while dropping a massive open loop about just how dangerous he would be heading into season 3. And Homelander isn't the only one staring into the abyss. Right after A-Train gets brutally ejected from the team, he becomes completely desperate to claw his way back into the spotlight. And this incredible deleted scene locks us right into his hidden motivation, showing exactly why he needs Watt a lot more than they need him. We are grounded inside the sleek, quiet corporate office, where A-Train is sitting across from his financial advisor, expecting a flash of his massive wealth. Instead, the tension starts to steadily climb as the advisor drops a devastating bomb. Despite pulling in a mind-blowing $40 million a year, A-Train's actual bank account is practically empty. He's left with less than $250,000, exactly $240K. A-Train completely freezes, totally unable to process the math, stammering,
"Nah, this can't be right. Run those numbers again."
A-Train tries to push back against the panic, yelling,
"I make $40 million a year before taxes."
But that's when the advisor starts listing off all the brutal ways he's bleeding cash, escalating the financial horror story second by second. First comes the unavoidable hit, taxes. Then the massive corporate leeching, commissions for agents, managers, lawyers, and the advisor himself. On top of that, he's got 2 dozen people on his payroll, and that's not even counting friends and relatives. A-Train tries to justify the insane cash burn by claiming he has responsibilities, but the advisor instantly shuts him down with the ridiculous reality of his expenditures: 13 houses, a private jet, a literal island he has never even set foot on, and the wildest flex of all, paying to have Jan Michael Winston's ashes shot straight into space. But just when you think he's hit the floor, the scene holds back its heaviest blow for the very end, dropping an even bigger bombshell that completely traps A-Train in a corner. Defiant A-Train shrugs off the bleeding, thinking, get booted from the 7, so
Get
what?
booted from the
I
7,
still got
so
this, I'm
what?
still
I still got
A-Train.
this.
But the
I'm still
advisor
A-Train.
basically looks at him like,
See, actually,
bruh, you're not.
bruh.
He reveals the terrifying
not.
truth. What owns the name, the uniform, the likeness, everything? If he tries to use his own identity in any commercial endeavor, what will completely wipe him out? A-Train tries to fight the corporate machine, snapping,
Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. I'm A-Train.
The advisor just gives him a deadpan look, delivering the ultimate final reality check. The second you fall out of favor, you're completely undone. Watt's total control over its assets extends far beyond commercial branding and mainstream heroes, stretching straight into the dark corners of their covert containment facilities. This brings us to the 6th episode, where the team breaks into Watt's secret psych ward and encounters Love Sausage, one of the more unusual subjects kept under tight lock and key. While the sequence is already jarring, the original production plan was designed to be significantly more extreme. In an interview with TV Line, Tomer Capone, who plays Frenchie, shared that Les Alonso, the actor portraying Mother's Milk, actually pitched a highly volatile alternative to the director. While the appendage was wrapped around his neck, Frenchie would intervene and save him by biting the prosthetic asset completely off. Capone agreed to the pitch, and the cameras actually rolled on the sequence. However, the practical prop ended up completely torn to shreds during the physical chaos of the take, rendering the captured footage entirely unusable. Because the production team had only manufactured a single prosthetic for the shoot, they couldn't reshoot the scene to get a cleaner take. Ultimately, the final version of Love Sausage's 10-foot appendage that made it into the episode had to rely on a precise combination of a practical animatronic puppet and digital elements layered in during post-production. While Watt is busy using practical and digital wizardry to cover up their bizarre biological experiments, the psychological fallout inflicted by their premier soups is tearing the team apart from the inside, bringing us straight to a deleted Kimiko sequence from the 4th episode that completely reframes her trajectory. We find her isolated, desperately trying to process the raw, suffocating grief of her brother's Kenji's brutal murder at the hands of Stormfront. It starts in a dark place with Kimiko staring at her screen, watching one of Stormfront's toxic secret Nazi social media rants. But the heavy tension shifts into a surprisingly quiet, tender loop when a random rodent wanders into her room. For a brief second, the emotional volatility settles. She drops her guard, befriending the little creature by feeding it snacks. The fragile piece is instantly shattered when a new broadcast cuts through the room, delivering a direct, aggressive call to action from Stormfront herself.
Oh, and if someone sticks a dick in your mouth, bite it off.
The scene fades, leaving a massive question mark over what Kimiko will do next, cutting back to her pacing the room in a nervous frenzy. Then comes a devastating localized emotional spike. Underneath her bed, she makes a horrific discovery: the exact same friendly creature is lying dead, caught in a trap. The sudden loss triggers a rapid progression of hidden trauma, violently reminding her of Kenji and the deeply personal nickname she used to call him, Mouse. If she was secretly torn about whether to risk everything and confront Stormfront at the upcoming rally, this cruel twist of fate is the exact catalyst that locks in her final dangerous decision. The loop closes on a note of total agonizing isolation as Frenchie desperately bangs on the other side, pleading,
Kimiko, open the door, please.
leaving her completely trapped with a newfound lethal focus. That pounding on Kimiko's door ties back to a deleted scene from the very first episode that sheds new light on Frenchie's feelings toward her. In the scene, Shiri bluntly asks whether he wants to sleep with Kimiko. Frenchie immediately denies it, insisting,
I will never sleep with her. Oh yeah? Then what is she to you then?
but when Shiri presses him on what Kimiko actually means to him, all he can say is,
It's difficult to explain, okay? She's special.
Shiri isn't convinced, mocking the way he treats Kimiko differently from everyone else. Cutting this conversation left Frenchie's motives deliberately unclear, but it makes his later attempt to kiss Kimiko feel far less abrupt. It also gives extra weight to Shiri's eventual response when he confesses what happened.
You thought a kiss would make her feel better or you feel better?
In just a few lines, the deleted scene reframes one of the show's most complicated relationships without ever fully answering what Frenchie truly feels. While Frenchie is stuck pounding at that locked door, the boys are down in their underground hideaway, just trying to keep from losing their minds, which brings us directly to Mother's Milk. We all know MM is entirely driven by his love for his family, and to keep himself balanced while trapped in that claustrophobic bunker, he spends the second season constructing a massive, beautiful dollhouse for his daughter, Janine. A deleted scene from episode 4 reveals the exact moment he finally finishes the project, dropping the emotional volatility of the bunker down to a devastating whisper. We see MM meticulously dusting and putting the final touches on the grand dollhouse, but as he stands there contemplating his achievement, a heavy realization hits him. Instead of holding onto it, he decides to completely let go, turning to a teammate and offering it up. It's an incredibly touching character moment that closes a major loop on his emotional state, proving that MM is finally accepting the brutal reality of his situation, that he simply can't be with his family right now.
Hey man, I couldn't help but notice that you're drinking another milkshake today. Now I love my sweets as much as the next guy, but you've been eating too much junk food and have been gaining an unhealthy amount of weight.
While MM is down in the shadows choking back his real-life heartbreak, Watt's glitzy corporate machine in the Season 3 is already blinding the public with a massive distraction, slamming us straight into the flashy dawn of the 7 red carpet premiere in Season 3. Right in the middle of the madness, director Adam Brooke is hyping up a reporter, claiming the film's theatrical release was miraculously saved by the fan hashtag release the cut, after Watt nearly shelved it entirely due to Stormfront's catastrophic Nazi scandal. Brooke tries to keep the public narrative perfectly clean, straight up denying any rumors of on-set friction by citing his strict professional policy, but the real backstage madness fractures right into the frame. Mid-interview, Watt executive Ashley Barrett creeps up from behind, sexually grabs him out of nowhere, leaving him visibly startled, and casually walks away while sniffing her hand, leaving a deeply unsettling question mark over what kind of chaos is running wild behind closed doors. And the tension only escalates from there as the scene cuts to Homelander and Queen Maeve posing for the flashing paparazzi, where Maeve is forced to plaster on this incredibly rigid, completely artificial smile for the cameras, leaving a question about how long this toxic front can possibly last before the whole thing completely explodes. Meanwhile, inside the dawn of the 7 premiere venue, Ashley Barrett and director Adam Brooke sneak away from the crowd and straight into a restroom stall. In the final version of Season 3, Amazon actually cut the explicit footage of their hookup, choosing to just subtly hint at what they were doing before showing them walk out together. But the deleted scenes actually pushed the camera right into the stall, showing the full encounter that was stripped from the broadcast. From there, the episode cuts to a rundown motel where Butcher pulls up to check on Huey, who is supposed to be monitoring Soldier Boy. Huey admits he stepped out for some fresh air, and Butcher immediately gets in his face, reminding him that Soldier Boy is a walking nuclear reactor who just racked up a massive body count in the last 36 hours. Huey brings up his moral doubts from MM and Annie, but Butcher shuts him down, tells Huey he is actually competent, and admits he was only pissed before because Huey left to work for Victoria Newman. They look in their alliance to finish the job, but right then, Butcher notices something wrong with Huey's face. Black fluid is literally leaking straight out of his ear from using Temp V. Before they can even talk about it, they hear a noise upstairs. They run up the steps to investigate and find Soldier Boy intimately embracing an elderly motel mate. Soldier Boy just drops a crude remark, dismisses the woman, and walks back out to rejoin the team. Now I can actually show you this exact clip with Huey right here, but the rest of the scenes coming up, they don't even exist online. They are strictly official Season 3 Blu-ray exclusives, and the studio isn't exactly giving them away for free. So just for this video, I went ahead and dropped $30 on this physical disc. The things I do for you guys, right? Since YouTube copyright won't let me show the actual footage for the rest of them, you're getting the full exclusive breakdown right here. Right after Soldier Boy dismisses the mate and rejoins the team at the motel, a deleted scene shifts the narrative back to Frenchie and Kimiko, picking up directly after Season 3 Episode 5 musical sequence. In total contrast to the high-stakes action surrounding the main plot, this sequence features absolutely no spoken dialogue, with their entire communication occurring via text messages. The exchange consists of short, everyday phrases and light humor, focusing on basic check-ins like "Are you okay?" and "Be careful." Both characters intentionally avoid discussing recent traumas or plot twists, using the text messages to navigate their relationship. Frenchie expresses his care without placing pressure on Kimiko, while Kimiko responds softly and gradually. By focusing entirely on this quiet text-based interaction, the scene strips away the surrounding noise to highlight their mutual attachment, grounding their relationship right before the narrative pulls them back to the main conflict. While Frenchie and Kimiko are using those quiet texts to shield themselves from the chaos, another deleted scene pulls us completely out of the safe house and drops us onto a regular, empty running track. This scene opens up a massive identity crisis for A-Train that the final cut completely skipped. Fresh off a severe heart attack, major surgery and brutal rehab, he's sitting there without any Watt cameras or showbiz glamour, actively questioning who he even is if you strip away his speed. For the first time, he looks like just an ordinary, vulnerable guy. His brother, Nate, joins him for a straightforward talk about his recovery, but the conversation is heavy with a deep-seated distrust because of everything A-Train has done in the past. Nate isn't looking at an untouchable superstar anymore. He is looking at someone fragile, living a major open loop about whether this broken family can ever actually piece itself back together.
I like to think of myself as the big brother.
you never had.
While a train is left trying to find some normalcy with his brother, the timeline jumps back to episode 5 for an extended look at Queen Maeve and Billy Butcher's hookup. In the broadcast version, we only get a quick setup before they drink and end up in a bed together, but this deleted cut dives way deeper into the actual psychology behind the moment, revealing a much darker setup for where both characters are headed. Maeve shows up at Butcher's grimy safe house wearing completely plain civilian clothes, ditching her usual superhero gloss to stay entirely off Watt's radar. She looks dead tired. With liquor bottles already sitting on the table, she pulls another batch of the green Temp V out of her bag and hands it over to Butcher. Sitting down, May finally drops her guard and vents about how exhausting her long con really is. To keep Homelander's paranoia in check, she's basically forced to play in the role of a broken, pathetic alcoholic who has completely given up. A calculated front that directly references her entire survival strategy inside Watt Tower. She bitterly explains how degrading it is to let Homelander think he actually beat her. Butcher, a guy who normally hates every single soup breathing, looks at her in this moment and doesn't see soup scum. Instead, he sees a fellow traumatized soldier willing to do whatever it takes for revenge. He pours her a drink, and they get into a deeply cynical conversation where they both agree that all soups, including Maeve herself, need to be wiped out. Maeve bravely agrees with him, hit an absolute peak self-hatred. The cut dialogue makes it completely clear that this isn't romance, but a shared toxic mix of despair and mutual hatred that triggers their aggressive, almost animalistic sex, leaving a massive open loop about how far this violent unleashing of pent-up rage will actually push them when they finally confront the Seven. That violent unleashing of pent-up rage is exactly what we got on screen, but a single deleted scene almost gave us a version of Soldier Boy that felt like a completely different person. In the final version of Season 3, he calmly executes Crimson Countess after discovering she betrayed him and handed him over to Russians decades ago. He is cold, detached, and collected. But according to Jensen Ackles, that confrontation was originally filmed with a completely different energy. Instead of staying composed, Soldier Boy verbally exploded, unleashing years of buried anger, grief, and betrayal right before killing her. By scrapping that outburst from the final cut, the show radically changed how audiences perceived him. Instead of seeing deeply wounded man finally confronting the person who destroyed his life, we got a guy who felt almost emotionless. It stripped away a rare flash of genuine vulnerability beneath his tough exterior, a choice that left him looking a lot more like Homelander than most viewers realized. And if you think that character shift is wild, it's nothing compared to a legendary comic book scene that the showrunners completely refused to adapt for TV. During the hero gasm arc in the comics, Homelander actually offers Soldier Boy a coveted spot in the Seven, but only in exchange for sexual favors. The show completely erased the concept. According to Eric Kripke, the interaction totally conflicted with the live-action version of the character they were trying to reveal. In the comics, Soldier Boy is a desperate, insecure wannabe, but the series needed him to be the hardened, intimidating figure fans met in Season 3. Swapping out that one specific dynamic didn't just save the actors from an awkward sequence, it completely rebuilt Soldier Boy's entire identity from the ground up. Jumping right into Season 4, we find Billy Butcher seated in a hospital exam room wearing a patterned patient gown, facing a literal expiration date. A blonde medical professional breaks down his latest MRI, and the reality is bleak. His condition is moving way faster than they ever anticipated. When Butcher asks if he's only got about 6 months left, she straight up confirms it. She tries to offer some treatment options, but Butcher completely shuts her down, swearing he isn't gonna spend his final days getting radioactive cat piss pumped into his veins. The doctor actually validates his choice and shifts to palliative care, warning him that the pain will eventually get so brutal he won't be able to stand, meaning he needs to decide how to use his remaining time. Butcher casually fires back and he already knows exactly what he's doing with it, but right before he exits, she hands him a small box of sample pain meds for when things get too rough. Butcher flips the package over, and there it is, the Watt Pharmaceuticals logo staring right back at him on the back of the box. While Butcher is staring down that Watt logo on his own physical death sentence, another deleted scene cuts over to Kimiko sitting in a completely different kind of medical office. She is starting a session with a speech therapist, but immediately tries to deflect from her trauma, holding up her phone with a typed note that reads, "Do you think the fingers on this hand look longer?" while showing off her blue nail polish. The therapist completely blows past the distraction and asks if Kimiko has managed to produce any actual sound during her vocal exercises. When Kimiko silently signals that she hasn't, the therapist points out that the block isn't physical at all, it's entirely mental, meaning she needs to see a psychologist instead. Not wanting to deal with that level of emotional unpacking, Kimiko just taps her screen to show a note saying "gotta go," and straight up bails on the appointment. But the moment she steps out into the hallway, she sees Frenchie casually waiting for her by the stairs, and she breaks into a massive, genuine smile. Right after that brief moment of comfort between Kimiko and Frenchie in the hallway, the scene cuts back inside the boys' headquarters, where the rest of the team sits in total silence. Everyone is isolated in their own space. Annie and Huey look completely drained as they stare blankly at a computer screen, while MM sits alone, silently looking down at a book about conquering OCD. Meanwhile, Butcher, carrying his 6-month terminal diagnosis, is quietly sorting through old papers and case files at his cluttered desk to pack up his life. Before leaving, his eyes lock onto a framed photograph on his shelf showing a memory of him, Becca, and their bulldog, Terror, together on the couch. After staring at the photo with a grim expression, Butcher turns around, says something in British, and walks out the door. While Butcher walks away to handle his death sentence in secret, Huey and Annie are left dealing with a massive crisis over at the hospital. Walking down a crumpled hallway, Annie gets completely cornered by a group of her own supporters who are totally freaking out. Turns out the cops just locked up 2 of their friends, Benny and Ian, and now the crowd is swarming her, demanding a game plan and an official statement. But Annie is completely suffocating under the pressure and has absolutely nothing to give them. When she tries to dodge the issue by telling them to just hang tight, it completely blows in her face, leaving her fans feeling totally abandoned while they're literally getting arrested for her cause. Realizing she's paralyzed and out of options, a defeated Annie just whispers, "I'm sorry," right as Huey steps in. He takes her hand to shield him from the mob and walks her away into the shadows, leaving her frantic followers completely stranded and opening up a huge question about how much longer she can even pretend to lead this movement. While Annie and Huey disappear into the shadows, the focus shifts straight back to Watt Tower, where Homelander is pacing down a hallway. He's leaving a voicemail for Ryan, demanding the kid call him back immediately, and stating he's unamused by this disappearing act. The moment he hangs up, Victoria Newman contacts him out of nowhere with the direct, "We need to talk." Homelander instantly shifts his posture, telling her he knows the perfect spot for them to meet, a specific rendezvous that sets up a major trajectory for both of them later in the season. But Homelander completely misses a critical detail right next to him. A-Train is lurking just around the corner in the shadows, quietly eavesdropping on the entire conversation. He walks away with high-stakes information that could completely compromise the leader of the Seven, opening up a massive question about exactly when and how A-Train is going to use his leverage. Right after that secret meeting is set up, another deleted scene takes us inside Victoria Newman's kitchen, where she catches her daughter Zoe wearing makeup. Victoria shuts it down immediately, reminding her about their strict no makeup rule. Zoe just brushes it off, arguing that nobody is even gonna see her, since she's just doing homeschool on Zoom anyway, and complains that Homelander's kid, Ryan, gets to do whatever he wants. Victoria tries to get real with her, explaining that since she's about to become the vice president's daughter, Zoe has to take her safety way more seriously. But Zoe fires right back, pointing out that it's actually about keeping everyone else safe from her, because she can't control her abilities, and even if she could, her mom wouldn't let her use them anyway. Trying to cool things off, Victoria suggests they go hide out for the weekend at the Uncle Stan's country house. Zoe responds by reminding her that Victoria literally put Stan in prison. Zoe gets really down on herself, admitting she hates that she turns into a terrifying monster instead of having cool, flashy powers like Ryan. Victoria gives her a rare, genuine soft moment, reassuring Zoe that she loves her no matter how scary her powers are, before instantly snapping right back into strict mom mode, and ordering her upstairs to wash her face. While Zoe goes to wash her face, we're back in the hospital corridors with Huey and Annie. Huey tries to laugh off the insane danger of spying on Homelander, joking that the psychopath might just brutally murder him, but Annie completely shuts that down. The stakes are way too real now. She reveals that her friend Annika from Crime Analytics just conveniently fell out a window. Huey instantly apologizes, pointing out that Sister Sage explicitly promised Watt would destroy her, but Annie insists she refuses to hide. She's planning to do the exact opposite, but before she can even explain how, Huey's mom Daphne steps in to introduce herself, completely flipping the tense vibe. Daphne instantly starts fangirling, bringing up how Annie's old starlet Bread and Cream used to be #1 corporate sales earner, before Watt rebranded it as a Crimson Countess serum. She praises Annie for having the guts to stand up to the company, even joking about how it totally tanked her own sales commission. The conversation cuts short when Daphne notices the doctor is finally ready to speak with them. It forces Huey and Annie to share a quick word exchange, trading "I love yous" and desperate warnings to stay safe before Huey heads back to deal with his family crisis. And while Huey goes to face his family, the camera drops us inside a dimly lit, grungy bathroom. MM is standing completely alone over the sink. There is zero dialogue. He grabs a small bristle brush and begins intensely scrubbing at his bare forearm, trying to wash away some invisible contaminant. He scrubs frantically, pushing the bristles harder and harder against his skin, completely trapped in a silent loop. In the dead of night, a massive snow-covered estate becomes the backdrop for a lesson that completely alters how Ryan views his own power. Homelander and his son strut straight into an exclusive gathering at Tech Night Manor like they own the party. In the luxurious foyer, a sharply dressed host officially welcomes the ladies and gentlemen of the Seven, while A-Train and Firecracker navigate the party, exchanging words in the background. But things take a turn when Ryan asks if he can snag a drink. Homelander completely enables it, telling the kid to grab a whole bottle of champagne if he wants, before dropping some wild fatherly advice, never look like you give a fuck, when dealing with the high society types. Moments later, they're chatting up two ultra-wealthy executives. Ryan innocently asks if he could catch a baseball game sometime, and one of the rich guys casually flexes that he literally owns the team, offering to make Ryan the starting shortstop right then and there. Homelander watches his son's wide-eyed reaction and uses the moment to lock in a new reality, telling Ryan that absolutely anything he wants in the whole wide world, he can just reach out and take it. But while Homelander is teaching his son that he can have everything, he's secretly spiraling over the people he's already lost. Cut to Black Noir chilling at his desk, silently flipping through cartoon animal sketches with the TV playing in the background. Suddenly Homelander walks in, completely in his feelings. He immediately starts venting about A-Train's massive betrayal, obsessing over the days when the Seven was an actual circle of trust.
A-Train.
What?
I'm not kidding. Go over there, pull out A-Train's
And acting completely heartbroken that A-Train, Sage, Starlight, Maeve, and even Ryan are turning their backs on him. He even tries to convince himself the biggest problem is just being way too open and kind to people. Then the temperature in the room completely drops. Homelander forces a creepy fake smile, walks right behind Noir and heavily drops his hands onto his shoulders. He leans in close, resting his head right against Noir's, and brings up how the original Black Noir was a great listener but still kept a massive secret from him. He orders Noir to stand up, getting right in his face and cornering him, but right at the peak of the tension, his mood completely flips. He suddenly pulls Noir into a tight, super needy hug, admitting he just really missed having someone around him who blindly listens to him. Right after that needy hug from Homelander, we see Black Noir hanging out in a hallway talking to the Deep, leading to a bizarre breakthrough that redefines his entire role. The Deep just looks at him, drops a quick bro, and starts casually walking away past a bloody body slumped against the wall. But right after that, Noir looks down and realizes something completely unexpected. He is pitched a tent. He instantly starts yelling down the hall at the Deep, frantically screaming that he's hard as a rock. Noir gets super hyped about getting a literal murder boner, yelling out to ask if the Deep knows what this means, completely ecstatic over the realization that he finally understands his character. And if Noir finally figuring out his twisted identity sounds wild, it completely pales in comparison to the massive power shift that happens in the very next scene, one that lays the groundwork for the ultimate future of the country. Homelander receives a phone call in a super dark room, and you can see the actual tears welling up in his eyes as he answers with a simple "Homelander speaking." On the other hand of the line is the President of the United States, who is sitting all alone at a massive table eating a steak dinner. Instead of asserting authority, the President completely bends the knee, telling Homelander how honored he is to be at the service of a great patriot like him. He basically hands Homelander the keys to the nation, telling him that whatever he needs, he just has to say the word. The entire interaction peaks when Homelander wraps up the call by fully submitting and saying, "Congratulations, Mr. President." Now the official deleted scenes for The Boys Season 5 finale, and they reveal a completely different ending than what we actually got. Take the final battle at the White House. Comic fans were expecting total scorched earth, but behind the scenes footage shows it was scaled back to just a few wrecked rooms and burnt carpet. Eric Kripke admits they wanted a massive apocalyptic showdown to match those global threat promo posters, but Amazon flat out refused to give them more cash. With production costs shooting up and actors' salaries spiking for the final season, they had to gut the VFX budget and scrap the giant comic book battles just to pay the cast. We also got a look at a cut character who was a direct, blatant parody of Elon Musk. This specific version looked and acted way closer to the real billionaire than the actor they ended up keeping in the final broadcast, which is wild, considering early seasons already established that the actual Elon Musk exists in the show's universe. But the biggest shocker is what happened to the Gen V crew. They were originally locked in for a massive role throughout the finale, but Kripke completely dropped them after getting some unexpected advice from Marvel's Kevin Feige. Feige warned him straight up to avoid the spin-off trap, Marvel learned the hard way in phases 4 and 5 that forcing the audience to watch side series just to understand the main movies completely kills casual viewer interest. Kripke admitted he was crushed about sidelining the college soups, but since Gen V Season 3 got cancelled, he's already trying to pivot and sneak those characters into other upcoming projects like The Boys Mexico. The biggest missing piece in the finale was easily Soldier Boy. After Homelander shoves him back into Cryo Chamber in episode 7, he completely vanishes from the final hour. Turns out Watt is saving him to anchor the upcoming prequel series, Watt Rising, which will kick off with Soldier Boy waking up, getting caught on the timeline and flashing back to the 50s. He's also locked in to appear in The Boys Mexico spin-off. Kripke clearly has a massive soft spot for Jensen Ackles from their old Supernatural days, which is the only reason he crammed Ackles, Jared Padalecki and Misha Collins all into the same season. The problem? The writers hyped Soldier Boy up as a game changer, only to bench him right when the finale needed him. The entire V1 plot went absolutely nowhere, leaving fans wondering why he didn't just strip Homelander of his powers and help the team end this once and for all. The show pulled the exact same trick with Stormfront. The scripts dropped heavy hints that she might still be alive, turning Soldier Boy's obsession with her into another massive teaser meant for Watt Rising. But while the plotting felt frustratingly hollow, the actors were still carrying the show on their backs. Kripke revealed that Anthony Starr entirely improvised Homelander's most unhinged lines right on set, including that bizarre graphic offer for oral sex. We also missed out on a much longer, darker scene of Butcher standing over Becca's grave, outlining his exact plan to weaponize the Godolkin wires before Huey talks him down. It was originally shot to perfectly bookend his entire arc, foreshadowing the moment Butcher is eventually buried right next to her. Cutting these scenes highlight the absolute biggest problem with the final 2 episodes. Amazon completely fumbled the bag. The season premiere had a massive scale, high stakes and crazy momentum, but the finale felt cheap, claustrophobic and rushed because Amazon chose to hoard cash instead of funding a global war. What makes this a total disaster is that a killer finale is exactly how you sell spin-offs. If you deliver a mind-blowing epic conclusion with sharp post-credit style hooks for The Boys Mexico and Watt Rising, fans will lose their minds waiting for the next premiere. But when you deliver a lazy, scaled-down ending that drops the ball on its main characters, nobody is rushing to watch the side projects. Amazon killed the hype for the entire franchise. Anyway, subscribe to the channel for the new updates of the media and see ya!